Ladies and gents, welcome to the Shroom podcast. I'm going to be talking to Josh Anand. We're going to be talking about hard bodies and soft plastics, chasing mulloway, chasing jewfish. You know how we love it here, talking about that species. He's also going to talk a little bit about chasing those particular fish on baits as well. We're not really limited to what goes on in this podcast. As you guys know, I'm your host, Shroom. Most of you guys already watch me on YouTube, so I'm just going to get straight into it. So Josh Anand, that's his name, and he basically is going to be talking about those things in the areas along the mid-north coast. So let's say between Port Macquarie and Tweed heads, and he's extremely experienced, and he's a dedicated land-based angler. So he specializes chasing these fish around, the structures of the headlands, breakwalls and such, and, important key holes in between. So, guys, welcome to the podcast. He's going to be sharing his extensive knowledge. Once again,
Hey,
Josh.
man. Good to be back.
How you going, mate?
Talk fishing.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one, Josh. Sorry for talking on top of you, but that first time that we spoke, I had a fantastic time. Just had to have you back to share more of your knowledge. I don't think we tapped into your vast knowledge bank in that podcast. So that's why we're back here. And as you guys know, I love talking jewfish. I love talking any fish, brim fishing, king fishing, bait fishing, the list goes on. And that's why we're here, raw fishing nuts. And Josh, firstly, let's just talk a bit about yourself for those that don't know who you are and help them understand what you're about. So what's your fishing background? How'd you start getting into the sport of fishing?
I grew up always around fishing and stuff like that, and always lived on the coast and surfing, and just going fishing with my old man and a couple of my uncles. They'd take me fishing under bridges and chasing brim and all that sort of stuff. And then just sort of throughout the years, just always get a bag of prawns and moved on getting fresh prawns and started catching more and more fish. And then my cousin Blackie, he'd been into it. He's actually from Sydney, and he recently moved up this way. So he's like chasing bass and all that sort of stuff, and then got into the game up here. And he actually brought the Jewfish to my attention. And he's saying, come out the boat, let's go get one. So we did that with very misguided attempts at trying to catch Jew, and to little to no success. Just started from there, just kept charging and asking guys on the rocks and talking to anyone, and just found my own way. And so here we are now.
I'd say that's a pretty classic story. You kind of just become enamored with them once you realize that they exist.
Yeah,
that was my story. I didn't know they exist. First of all,
I couldn't agree more.
Second of all,
even just knowing they're there, it's like, wow, I'm like chasing brim and that, but Jewfish are there too, like, and you don't even think about it. So knowing they're there and exist, that's a very good point.
Like for me, for myself, I remember asking my mate when he mentioned the word Jewfish. I said, well, what's that? That's not something I've ever heard before. And I was chasing brim at night as well. And so we were just sitting there on the rock at night. It wasn't lit. It was on the river. And he just mentioned, hey, I heard this is a Jewfish spot. There's Jewfish that have been caught here before. Hey, what's that? What's that? Oh, it's big. It's like a big fish. Really? You can catch big fish here? And that was pretty much my story. Interesting how you used to fish with all your uncles and all that. It's always family members most often that introduce you to fishing, and then the addiction starts. But a quick question. So how do you find fresh prawns? Do you like using fresh prawns?
So. Well, when I did, at the moment, I don't really use fresh prawns, but there's lots of co-ops along the coast. So rather than getting your specials from the servo, I'd go into the co-op, and sometimes they'd have frozen ones, sometimes they'd have fresh. And I think that's a massive difference. Fresh bait doesn't matter what it is. If it's fresh, it's already ticking boxes, just for that little bit of extra, because everything in fishing is the 1%. So if that's I like it.
All right, so that's great, Josh. Moving on. So as we're going to be talking about Jewfish, so now we know how you started, how you started to look into it and develop more of that skill. Would you say you're starting to specialize in this now? It's starting to become an obsession. I mean, it's the title of the podcast, so I would say most definitely yes. But we've got plenty of what do you call feathers in
Oh,
our bow, so that might be just one notch on the
oh,
belt, so to speak.
specialty. I think, man, it'd be a tough gig to call specialty, but obsessed, yes, definitely obsessed with these fish. But from where I've started, I think I spoke about in the last podcast. I'd be lucky to get a hit or a fish every 10 trips, and now I'm
Yep,
probably either getting a fish, dropping a fish, or at least getting hits. Probably 2 to 3, 5 at the worst. I think that's more
yep,
just knowing from going and what times to go. Um, like
yep,
might touch on it later on spots, but like if there's a new spot, if people say, "Oh, what do you reckon about this spot?" I'll say if you got a whole day and if you can get 2 tide changes in, whether it's in the morning, like early high tide, and you can fish it the run out and then fish it the back run in up to
yep,
high. At some point in the day, if that spot is going to hold fish, any time in that tide, the fish will come in. Like you could be casting all day and then get
yep,
20 minutes of hot bite, but it's like, all right, mid to dropping tide, they came in, it was hot for half an hour. So then the next time you go, you'll go, all right, high tide, I've got about 2 hours, I'll sleep in and go and then fish it to the dropping tide and then it might turn down and then yeah. So I think that's
yep,
why I think I'm getting a lot more productivity in fishing because I'm not just going out willy nilly. Like,
yep. I want to
yeah,
expand on that point. I used to put in this that same sort of dedication and time into a day. So I'll pick a day where I could hit both tides. You get the high and the low, for example,
yeah,
or the low and then the high. And as long as you pace yourself, you keep your energy levels up, and you can kind of like survive that period after the
yeah,
tide change in the morning, and then get to the afternoon. You can, I wouldn't say guarantee a fish, but you surely should catch
yeah, exactly.
something or see something or get a hit. Um, it's a tough day though. Like sessions like that, I remember I'd carry a couple of rods first. You carry your Jewfish rod, which we're going to go into like gear,
Yeah,
pretty shortly, and then I carry a light setup
yeah,
just to keep
totally.
entertained. I could never sleep in the car, so I would always be
Yeah,
flicking for brim in between. And then that afternoon period, as it's just starting to dip, oh, that's chance number two, and you know that you could get something
yeah.
if you don't get something in the morning, particularly if the fish
Like
are in the area.
there's been times as you say
Yep.
if you can stick it out like in the afternoon, the sun's up, it's hot. I've been just sitting in a rock pool with my knees, with just with my legs in the water, just sit there, just take an hour out, just chill, and then it's like, do we go home or just get some kanji and try and catch a bream? Because you're always taking other rods
That's
as
right.
well, so or you might see a turtle or something that makes it a bit good. But yeah, it's a long day.
Yep.
It is a long day, and you just got to stick it out because when you're done and you think, nah, I'm over it, that's when you get a fish, and it's like, oh, stoked I stayed.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the next question. I was going to expand more, but it's just going to get more and more interesting as
Yeah,
we get into this podcast. So let's go a little bit off tangent here. So is there any place besides from where you're currently targeting these fish that you'd like to travel to give it a go? I mean, you can pretty much catch this all along the southern
yeah,
areas of Australia. So you could technically, I mean, I don't know about Tasmania, but like, you could chase mulloway in WA,
yeah, for sure.
Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, a little bit further up at maybe the lower reaches of Queensland, but then it starts to become a different species with the
Yeah,
black mulloway, black
I'd
jewfish.
probably, I would love to if Sydney wasn't so busy. I'd love to go down to the Sydney areas and climb headlands down there chasing kingfish off the rocks and like the south
Yep,
coast. I've been down the south coast before, and that coastline is just insane. Like I haven't done much time down there, but
Yep.
yeah, I'd love to hit that. There's so many places, man, like South WA, like down Albany and all around those rocks down there. And yeah, I'm just a frother. Like I'm happy to fish wherever. Like if there's
Yeah.
fish, I'm like,
Same. I've always thought about, if you could pick anywhere in Australia, you do it on a landmark. You do it on the
oh
steps of the Opera
yeah,
House. You do it, like obviously you can I don't think you'd like literally fish on you. Obviously you
yeah.
can't fish on the steps of it, but you're close enough on what's that wharf name? I know you guys that listen to the podcast know what I'm talking about, but there's a wharf
I'd
there
get
that
just so
you
much
do it there.
anxiety of everyone watching. I get anxiety when I hook up
Yeah.
on the breakwalls and people walk past and I've got 10 people watching me. And it's like,
You won't just have locals, Josh. You'll have,
yeah.
the
Well, there's a lot of
tourists.
tourists up in
They'll
these
just
areas as
flock.
well. But sometimes it puts more pressure on
Oh,
you.
right.
Like you're fighting a fish and then you
Yeah.
turn around, you got 5 to 10 people standing there watching. And then you drop it and
Yep.
then they all just put their head down and keep walking. Just to left you to pick up
Yeah.
the pieces. It's like,
Yeah. We all anglers, we all know that feeling where every second feels like 10 seconds when there's the crowd
yeah.
watching. They know you're onto a fish and they're all just huddled around and they're all saying some stuff, pointing out and telling the people, hey, he's on a fish, he's on a fish. Everyone's coming up. And then you
Yeah.
drop it, let's
That's
all
all.
turn
Don't worry.
around and go.
Don't worry. You lost it. All good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the
Yeah.
pain we all understand. That was a good one. Any species that you'd like to tick off that you haven't caught before?
Probably big mackerel. Probably a big mackerel or a big tuna
Yep.
off the rocks. Like I've caught.
Any specific
Probably
mackerel?
probably a Spanish. Yeah.
Spanish?
Just probably on a stick bait too. I want to catch
Yep.
on a stick bait. Um, and I've caught like little tuna and
Yeah.
stuff just as bycatch. And man, even the small ones, man,
Yep.
they make these reels sing. Like a big one.
Yeah.
Like oh, yeah, I'm keen. Yeah, just something big, man, that pulls line. Bring it on.
Yeah, I still got to tick
Yeah.
off a proper tuna. As in a proper species of tuna, not a proper size. So I'm not asking for much, I'm not. If the fishing gods are listening, I'd like to tick off any sort of tuna, even if it's a Mac tuna, I guess. Longtail.
Yeah,
I'll take a
way
longtail. I need a longtail. I lost the good one. I lost the good one up in Weipa. That still breaks my heart thinking about it. But that's what keeps us going back. Now, let's talk about some more interesting things, and that's just like more of the technical side now. So, actually, we'll do one more question. So, is there any specific capture of a jewfish that stands out in your memory?
Oh, they all do. I spoke about one the other week when we spoke, but I've got a good story from the other night. I didn't.
All right, let's go into it. So less than a week
I think
ago,
it was
this one.
Tuesday night. I just sent my 5000 Stratic to Shimano to get serviced, and I just got it back, and I ordered a new line, a new spool of OSHA. Anyway, so I ordered that 3 or 4 weeks ago, thinking, get me reel back, get my new line on it. But my line hadn't came yet, so I thought, I've got to go fish it. Anyway, this fish has hit my plastic, and it didn't feel like a big fish. Like a lot of the time, like I've had them, they'll sort of just bump it, and then you strike, and then they take off. But this one was really delayed, and then it just started running, and I'm just holding it, and we're just watching my line disappear. And I got my friend there, he's laughing. He's like, you got to stop this. He's going to spool you. You're going to get spooled. So I'm like, and I was tight on my drag, and this thing's just singing. I've got my thumb on the spool trying to stop it. And I've been caught before when the big fish run, you feel like you got too much drag on them, so you give it a little couple of clicks looser. But then when the fish stops, you haven't got the pressure there to then keep the hooks firm in the mouth, and you end up, they spit the lure. So this time the fish stopped, and I ended up getting it right back to the rocks. That big swell, and we just got a heap of tags sent out, so we're gonna start tagging our fish. So I didn't want to put a gaff in it,
Yep.
so um, I was trying to sweep it up over the rocks. But so for about 5 or 10 minutes, I was trying to wait for that big set to wash him up, and found the set. And I've hooked in, pulled it up over, and it's just dove at the last second as the wave was bringing it over, and it nicked the rock. And unfortunately, I didn't see it, but it was a good fish, Shroom. Good fish, like to nearly be
Yeah.
spooled, get it back, and
I can see the tear in your eyes talking about this
yeah,
story as the story was unfolding. Oh, that's so gut
yeah. And I've got
wrenching.
the
I know
guys
that
on there
feeling. It's the
going, "You just
worst
lost a fish
feeling.
of a lifetime, and that's never going to happen again." And I'm going, "Shut up! It's gonna, it happens heaps. We always lose
It's
big
gonna
fish. They'll
happen
be
again.
there again."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that was probably the most. That's the recent one that, when you say the most memorable, that's the most fresh and the most upsetting.
Yeah.
But it's all part of it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So the scab hasn't formed yet. So when the scab forms, you're gonna rip it off. From this
Oh yeah,
mental
I'll just go.
anguish.
I'll be back. I'll be back. I'm not deterred.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Back with a vengeance.
like I think in the past where you
Yeah.
used to drop fish, you used to get angry, and I see a lot of guys screaming sometimes that they lose fish and they're angry. But the more you do it, it's just like he won, he got me, and you sort of just put your head down, sit down for
That's
five
right.
minutes, rig up, and it's not. Yeah, it's emotional, but it's not emotional. Like you see some guys, and it's like you don't really need to carry on, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just all part of it, man.
Now, you mentioned something about putting a thumb to the spool to increase the pressure. So what I normally do is, like, if I think I've got enough, what do you call a strike drag on a spin reel? I don't even know if you can
Yeah,
call it that, strike drag. Then what I do is depending on what I'm targeting. So if I'm targeting small fish that don't go for that extra, that extra special
yeah,
run with the X factor. So it's just got that extra special power, and it could just bust you off with pure brute
yeah,
speed and force. Then I won't. Then I can just set it on fighting drag, a high level of
yeah,
drag, and I'll go with that. But I find that sometimes if you set it on that drag and you've hooked an extra special fish that has
yeah,
that X factor in the run, like a kingfish or a jewfish, then I set it back like a
yeah,
couple of notches on the drag knob, and then I crank it up just a bit, knowing in my head that
yeah,
that was my plan already. It's just that initial burst, that sudden increase of zero pressure, and suddenly you got like a billion Newton pounds force on the line, and it
yeah,
just pops the leader, and then I go with that. Or like what you said, like I set it to a level where I can still palm the spool to add more pressure during the run, and then I'll take it off as it slows down. I always kind of let the
yeah.
reel do its work. I don't like fiddling around with it too much. And sometimes when you play around with
Oh,
it, you don't even know if you've got a lot or not enough, and you're pulling the light
yeah,
as the fish is
exactly.
moving
I
the
think
light.
if you start playing with your reels and stuff
Yeah,
mid fight, you just overthink everything. And like experience, I've played with drags, and 9 times out of 10, I'll lose the fish. So it's like if you can get that drag
yep,
like tight where it's going to stay firm, it's still enough to
yep,
run. As you say, like the reel does all the work. And because I like to do it too. Like I rarely thumb the spool. It was just I had
yep.
probably maybe 40, 50 meters left,
Well, you
and I
had an
was
extra
like,
special fish there. You had to do
yeah,
something. You had to do something in that situation. It's palming the spool and fiddling around with the drags and stuff. You're only doing that
yeah,
as a response to the input that the fish is doing. If the fish wasn't pulling the line at a million miles an hour, it wouldn't click in your mind that,
yeah,
hey, maybe I
exactly.
need to do something. I need to slow it down, make it harder.
But they'll tire. The fish will tire, and like when you're first starting, it's the fish grabs it, it's screaming off. You're going, oh, I'm gonna stop it. But as a reality, like you got 300 meters of line, and if there's no structure there, and jewfish aren't really gonna dive in head first to the reef and try and do you. Like, be firm
Yep.
and just let it do its thing. It'll tire. And you just get more confident with your gear, like what it can do, what it can stop, without
Yep.
playing drag mechanics mid fight. Like as I was saying
Yep.
before, I've loosened the drag a bit, and then the fish has stopped, and then I've gone to wind up and had no pressure there, and I've dropped the fish. Like,
Yeah.
I think
It's like when you're winding and the
yeah.
spool's creaking with you. It's that, yeah. Feels like you're a
Oh
hamster in
I
a
know
wheel
what you
when
mean.
that
Yeah,
happens. It's
yeah,
yeah. It's like yeah. Anytime I get a good fish and I'm at the limit of my drag, I'm
yeah,
like, okay, no more. It's gonna pop off if I put any more drag clicks of drag on that. And you're pumping, and it's like
yeah,
click
yeah,
click click as you're spinning. You feel like an amateur, but that's
yeah,
literally the
exactly.
limit of your line
And fish are
and your
powerful,
gear.
man. Fish are so powerful. Like you can have that thing full
Yep.
lock, and they're still gonna scream it off like it's nothing. Like you wouldn't physically can't pull
Yep.
the line off, and they're just rat. Like,
How important do you think turning the fish's head is? Like you can fight a fish and just kind of like
yeah,
let it slow down, and then casually, pump and wind and bring it in. And then there's those others that, like sometimes what I do is I know I'm gonna get done. So the second that it's reached a limit of speed where it's just slowed enough, I try to put as
yeah,
much pressure to turn that head so that it's got to turn back around
yeah,
to
totally.
go for that run. Like, do you do anything like
Yes and
that?
no. I feel like a lot of the time I've done that with big fish. I've given it too much and I've pulled the hooks. Um, there's been
Yep.
instances where I've been taken next to the rocks, like at my feet, and it starts diving in, and
Yep.
then you put a bit of stick on them in close and try and keep their head up and stuff. But I find with the big ones,
Yep.
when they run, it's once they slow up, like they might run for 30 seconds to a minute, but once they slow up, you can sort of turn their head. Where I imagine fighting kingfish and stuff, you want to be like, you want to be turning them quick. I think for this type of fishing, I'm
Yeah.
not too
Yep.
stressed
Absolutely.
about that.
Yeah. I would say like most of the time, a dead giveaway, besides from the head shakes, is when they stop. It's kind of like sometimes they're kind of not there for like the
Yeah,
next 15, 20 seconds. Then they'll kick a few times, and that's when you know, all right, it's kicked. It might
yeah,
just go for another run right now. It'll go bang, bang,
yeah.
again.
You got to be ready.
Like that's when you're like, yeah. So I try to be ready because that initial burst of pressure is when you're
Yeah,
just gonna like pop it off. Like that's for me. Like up in down in Sydney. Like,
yeah.
relative to you, I'll be down in Sydney. You'll be up on the north coast.
But and
Yeah,
even when
that's interesting.
like when you get them back to the rocks, you think the fight's over, and then they might just decide they want to do another run down, but then your line's real close to the rocks and it can skim the rocks and break you off. Or you think you've got them close and then a
Yep.
wave will come and there's not much you can do. You just hope that it doesn't get washed under or um,
Yep.
just break off from the rocks or something.
Yep. All right. What we're gonna do is we're gonna quickly talk about the tackle and then the lures, and then we're gonna get back into this discussion, just so that people can understand what this is all about. So, we're doing this on. Okay, we're doing everything really: hard bodies, soft plastics,
Yeah,
even baits, if you want to talk about that. So let's say that we're gonna have a combo for hard bodies. You can have two if you want, like a light and a heavy, and then a soft
yeah,
plastic combo, light and a heavy. If you want to talk about bait, you can talk about that. They can be the
yeah.
same. They can be different. So
All right.
we'll start with
I've
that.
got three. I've got three setups I take with me. Um, well, I've got three setups, and I normally just take two with me, unless I've got ideas of baiting.
Yep.
I run Shimano grapplers. I've got the PE 2.5 with a 5,000 Stratic with 30 to 40 pound braid. Sometimes I change it up. Um,
Yep.
for no,
And
yeah, I
that's
really
that
like the
OSHA
OSHA.
stuff you were
Yeah,
saying.
like super strong, super thin,
Yep.
long cast. Seems to last a bit longer as well. Um, and then I've
Yep.
got the grappler PE04, which I really like that rod. That's
Yep.
really nice. I pair that with an 8,000 Saragossa, and I put 50-pound OSHA on that. And then I've got a PE6 grappler as well, and that's got the Saragossa 14,000 on it. And that's got, I think it's PE3 or 4, but I think it's about 70-pound OSHA on that as well. And then I just run
Yep.
I just run 80-pound leader on all of them. Around where I fish, I haven't really had an issue with the fish being leader shy or anything like that. Takes a bit of abrasion because sometimes it can take a hit and obviously lose fish, but it can handle a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you're chasing quality fish like this, even if you can picture every step of the way to success, they're gonna get you at some stage,
And you
sometimes.
definitely lose more fish, Shroom, than what you hold. Like, especially around the rocks. Like,
Yep.
if I'd held every single fish that I'd hooked, maybe talk about that specialization. But man, lose so many fish to the rocks and the waves and that, like, and it's such a good feeling when you can stand up there, hold your fish, get a photo, or just hold it for a bit. Like, I've sort of gotten to a point now I don't really take photos anymore. Like, unless it's a big fish, I don't really worry about getting photos. And like, don't have a big social media and posting and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just to hold them, feel them, look at the colors. Like, got this wicked metallic purple on them on some of them, and it's just like, man, good fish, pretty fish, and you just dive it back in, and it's like, yeah, got him.
Yeah. I can tell by just the gear you're using, it's really heavy. The reels are robust, they're solid, they're large, they got strong drags, and they got heaps of capacity. And the braid and leader, you're not skimping out on anything. Everything seems to be tough. What do you reckon is the most important piece of your gear? The rod, the reel, or the line? If you had to skimp out of one, would you?
I think it's got to be a toss up because the rods are important just so you can feel everything, but definitely the reel, definitely my reel. Like, that 5,000, I just sent that to Shimano, and in the my local shop, he said, "Oh, it feels fine," and I said, "Nah." I said, "I want to send it off." I said, It's not what it can do. I'm not happy with it." And they ended up replacing 4 bearings in it, and it got it back straight away. And I probably got to get sent back because then they got spooled the other night. But they probably burn out the bearings again. But yeah, definitely my reel. Like, if you got the reel, it's light, it's comfy, and it all goes hand in hand. All goes hand in hand.
Yeah, so you're mostly looking for a smooth drag, that's the most important, or the feeling on rotation?
Probably the feeling on rotation. Like, the drag is important, but I feel like a drag is a drag. Like, you got good drag and stuff like that, but I think the rotation to make that lure swim the way you want it to swim, like, you want that nice, where you might get it. I don't know, it's hard to explain. You might get it to 9 o'clock, say, and then that's where you do your thing. And then when you get back down to 6 o'clock, you'll jig again, and then just sort of all works mechanically in that way. And
yeah, so we're going to go into techniques shortly. So I'm already kind of picturing that it's like maybe a slow, very finesse technique, because that's what a slow wind will allow you to do better than a reel that's, you're feeling the clunks and things are loose inside, and it's just not, it's had a bit of wear. The drag, I mean, the drag's obviously very important, like you said, but I guess these reels, their drags are just, they're made for big fish anyway. So they're
what do you think is the most, for your type of fishing, what do you think is the most important part of your setup?
I think because in Sydney, getting that right action with a flicking action in slower moving water, where it's less about winding and it's more about the rod tip, then
Yeah.
it's the rod for me. So because it's more a bottom contact sort of
Okay.
fishing here in Sydney. We don't. I mean, we do have areas with wash, but how often do you see people fishing off the coast and spinning up a jewfish every day of the
Yeah.
week? You just don't see that. What you'll see is you'll see people fishing bridges,
Yeah.
headlands, off rocks, fishing drop offs and holes within reach of land. And the water, although I always complain that the current's flowing quick, it's not that quick because you're inshore really. And so most of the time you have to let that lure hit the bottom and you have to kind of like feel out, where the bottom's starting to raise up a bit, or whether
Yeah.
you're over weed or mud, and every little tap could be that fish. It can be quite
Yeah.
finicky inside inshore. So to me, I'd nudge
Yeah.
towards the rod, and also yeah, it's just I do get fatigued casting lures for and flicking for jewfish.
Yeah, totally. That's why that small setup, that PE 2.5 with the 5,000, like you could cast that all day. But then you put the PE6, you run the PE6 setup, man, you arm pump and you're like holding the reel to assist with the action of your plastic just to get that hot because your arms are just cool.
Actually, I do that when I get tired. I'm hopping it with the
Yeah.
non-dominant hand holding the
It
reel as
actually it
well.
actually works.
It-
It's good.
yeah. Or what you do is, yeah, you rest the butt along your stomach and you grab the other hand
Yeah.
that's not fatigued and you hop it that way and you put that on
Yeah,
back on the hand when
exactly.
you wind
There's
back
always
down.
ways around fatigue.
Yeah. That's right, folks. That's not like the proper
That's
way to do
it.
it, but hey, it works. It works when you're fatigued. Now, for these three setups, so let's go through it. So the light setup, you'd use plastics and hard
Yeah,
bodies,
the
and
first
then
setup I mainly use plastics on it, um, and I'll throw a hard
yep,
body up to 50 grams on that. Like those levies, the croakers are probably a bit heavy for this setup, but the levies are about 50 grams,
yep,
and that's actually it feels a little bit ugly, like it's a little bit too heavy. It probably is. But I've caught fish on
yep.
that. I don't generally.
So you'll basically be lobbing it. You're basically like adjusting for the fact that
Oh, it
the
can
it's a
handle
bit
the
heavy.
cast, but I probably wouldn't go much heavier than that. But in like,
Yep,
I don't really put hard bodies on that unless it's like a surface lure or something like that. It's mainly just plastics. Um,
yep. So that one there is the Grappler P 2.5 5,000 Stratic, and the second one, your medium setup Grappler P4 6,000
yeah,
Gosa,
that's at 8,000. But yeah, that was the eight.
8,000.
Yeah.
Yep,
That PE4, that's probably my favorite. Like I love the little one for the finesse, but for the all rounder, that PE4, that's perfect. That can throw heavy hard bodies, heavy stick baits. You can fill the finesse with plastics. Um, it doesn't fatigue you as much as the PE6. Like it's sort of that nice weight balance where, like, if a girl, like a
yep,
little girl, was using it, she'd probably be over it pretty quick. But like most people that are charging
yeah,
um, for Jewfish and that's pretty like a pretty reasonable setup. Um, yeah,
yep.
I'd be happy with that.
And the Grappler P6 14K
That
Gosa.
one, I bought that for pelagic season up here, up on the coast. But as
Yep,
you're well aware of, we got completely flooded out, and I think everything just went out to sea. So I've sort of missed the mackerel season and all the inshore sort of game stuff. But that's what I originally got that set up
yep.
for. Um, but
That's for hard bodies, soft plastics, and
oh,
baits. I
mainly
assume
just
it's heavy
heavy
enough
hard
to.
bodies. Maybe just mainly just hard bodies on that one, because I just feel I haven't
Yep,
got the finesse with the plastics on it. I will use it if I get smoked and I'm losing fish. I'll put a plastic on the big one, and like it does catch fish. But
yep.
again, it's just too much work on the arms. Um, so I'll just have that rigged up with a big hard body on it, and I might have 10 casts with my plastic,
Fair
and
enough.
then have 5 with that one, and just sort of keep swapping and changing. And yeah, exactly with baits and that as well.
Yep.
Same with the EP04. I'll put baits on that
Yeah.
one as well.
Yep. So let's just quickly talk about lures. So maybe some hard
Yeah.
bodies first up. So what sort of hard bodies are we
I
talking
like the
about here?
levy. I like the levies and the crackers. Just got a real vibrating
Yep.
action. So I think most people know what those lures are. Um,
Yeah, but
yeah,
we'll talk about it. So these are
yeah.
large.
I think I said
What
180
is
mil,
this?
but I think I was wrong. I think they're about
Subsurface.
150. Just say between 150 and 170 mil, 180 mil, and they're like a shallow
Yep.
diver. They're mimicking mullet and other bait fish, slow moving bait fish, which on a slow retrieve they just have a really nice body roll on them. Locally made as well. A couple of Aussie guys down here or up here. They make
Yep.
them out of their shed and sort of get amongst those. But I think that's a definite lure to have. And man, Big Taylor, like anything will hit him. Big Flatty would even take him as well.
Slays them.
And that hit is
Yeah.
just, it's not like a finicky hit. It's a hit. It's just bam, just gone. Like, they hit hard, man.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
they
That's
hit
what we're talking
hard.
about, Josh.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
should.
that got me pumped there. Do you change the hooks at all, or you just use them with the? Do
Yeah,
they come stock
they come
standard
with
with
trebles
trebles?
on them. I've never had any straightened. Um, I'm pretty confident in the
Yep.
hooks that they supply because we're all Jew fishermen up around these parts, and they know what. Well, they're
They're probably
called
designed for it, like
what is it
specifically.
called? The Jewy Jewels. That's what they are. The Jewy Jewel. The croak of the Jewy Jewel.
Yep.
So that's what they're designed for, and that's what they catch. And so I'm pretty confident in that. I don't change any of the
Yep.
terminal on that. Yeah, so
Right.
this is that's the Levy lure I like to use. If you can sort
Right.
of see that, just get
So for those listening on the podcast, that's like a white lure with a dark silver back with a black spot in the middle. It's got a nice couple of trebles. It's a shallow diving lure, classic mullet pattern with a yellow chin.
and yeah, it just gets like an incredible roll. Like it's amazing how these lures swim. And then that's the croaker color I like to use as well.
Yeah. So it's a bit more of an interesting shape. This one's got a bit of a belly. Looks to be, it's got some striated pattern. It's mostly silver as well. So I'm starting to see a pattern here. Purple spot, black, dark silver back, I'd say. And this one's got that nice pink chin or red chin. I really like lures with a red chin, actually.
Just suggests like the gills are open on fish or...
Yeah, it kind of looks like the gills or maybe a bit of blood near the head. I think it kind of also gives a fish something to target. You know, you've always got eyes or the head or color that draws their attention towards a certain part of the lure.
I think
I like to hit a head first.
What they say is the color catches the fisherman and the action catches the fish. So you say you notice a pattern in the colors I like. Like some guys use bright pink, bright green. I personally like the natural ones, but yeah, they swim. They just swim insane. It's a one.
Would you put natural for every situation? Would you put natural colors for say every situation? Whether it's rainy, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's dark.
I don't really see too much of a different because a lot of the time you're fishing in either wash water with sand or dirty water, and like they got those lateral lines, so they're picking up vibrations from so far away. And when I fish them, I like to give my rod a bit of a sweep and really get that lure, really get that lure working under the water, and like you can feel it jiggling, and like it sets out. So there's probably guys that disagree, but I don't really feel that color is massive on it. Maybe like.
Yeah, well, I kind of see in a way that is, you can argue both ways here. It is massive in the way that you're only choosing naturals, so you want something that's as close to
Yeah.
the real McCoy as possible. You know, the real thing. So that means color is important. If it wasn't important,
Yeah.
you just buy anything off the shelf, and whether it was green or pink, fluoro, green striped, it wouldn't matter because you don't think
No.
that will have an impact. But I think that natural, in a way, you're not convinced that you need to change it up according to the conditions because that is the most natural
Yeah.
colors that you've
Like
chosen.
I contradict myself. Because with plastics, my favorite color is pink. But, yeah.
We'll talk about plastics now. So for plastics, what are some of the
I
ones that you
really
like to
like
throw?
the 7-inch jerk shad with a 1 ounce to 1.5
Yep,
ounce jig head. If it's really big swell, I'll put a 2 ounce jig head on, and also that's
yep,
a Berkeley jerk shad, and they also
yep.
get the Berkeley 6-inch. I think it's shimmer shad or paddle tail, shimmer paddle or something like that. But yeah, just a paddle tail. It's,
Is that a new
oh,
one?
they reckon they're not new, but I've only started noticing them on the shelves lately. Like it's not the pre-rigged ones. The pre-rigged ones of the shimmer shad.
Yep,
Um, they're pretty good for jewfish. They get smashed as well, but they
yep,
start getting a bit expensive when you're losing them around the rocks. And I think just your normal jig head is just as effective in the right spot.
yep. So I think the shimmer, yeah, like you said, the shimmer name might be relatively new, but
No,
I haven't
well
heard
yeah,
that
they had
one.
the
So if they're old, I have not heard about them
yeah,
up
okay.
until
They got
recently.
3 sizes in them. That's actually really good lure. Like they swim really nice, and they swim really good on the way down. Like I've put them in the swimming pool
Yep,
and saying that's actually a tip. If I can give a tip, put your lures in the swimming pool. It will improve your
yep.
fishing tenfold. Like you get blokes that are ripping their rods up to get the lure moving, and if you did that in the swimming pool, you'll go, wow, that just jumped 4 meters. Like, yeah,
And that
exactly.
looked
And
terrible.
just play around for 10 minutes. It's fun. Have a beer, flick the lure in the pool. It's good. um,
Yeah,
I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, the shimmer, like the shimmer stuff and the pre-rig stuff from Berkeley. But yeah, I can't think what they're called. But yeah, they're just the paddle tails, the 6-inch paddle tails. They seem to be really effective in the
yep.
gulp.
Do they have anything in the range that is in the gulp range with a paddle tail that you
That's
use?
what I'm talking about. The gulp.
Yeah, because the shimmer, that's just normal plastic, isn't it? That one. It might be a power bait
Well,
sort of. I don't know actually. I
don't
mean, I got
quote
to
me,
look
but
that
I
up.
think the
But
shimmer. Oh well, the soft vibes. They got the shimmer fork and the shimmer shad. Um, I thought it was to have like a Oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of the ripple shad. I'm thinking of the ripple. Yeah, sorry,
I've
that's what
used
I'm
the
thinking
ripple
of.
shads. I've used them.
Yeah,
They've been around for a long time. Oh, it doesn't matter. Like if it's a
yeah,
ripple shad,
that's what
we're
I meant
talking
to
about the ripple
ripple
shad.
shad, not
That
the shimmer
I've used
shad.
for many years. That one.
Yeah, they're actually so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They what was it? I think they used to stock them everywhere in Sydney, and then they kind of got
is
rid of
that
most of
the
the range.
pre-rigged ones with the treble on the bottom? Okay.
No, no. These are these ripple shads are. It's like a
Yeah,
streamlined fish
yeah,
with a head and eyes. It's like a red eye, white body, and
yeah,
just a classic paddle tail, and it's got like striations going down
yeah,
diagonally across where the gills are, and then like they work pretty
yeah,
well when
yeah,
you slow roll them. Like they're more of a winding plastic, I'd say, like
yeah,
a swim bait plastic than like a
yeah.
jerk
I agree.
style quick jerking.
And that's like your
So
subtle
that kind
rod
of
lift, just to lift it up and then let it swim back down by
yeah,
itself.
yeah, yeah. So I can like imagine how they would be good in the wash. Down, down in Sydney, especially if you're fishing cross current a lot, you have
Yeah,
to adjust your action a bit to get the best out of them. But yeah, I don't think they've been too popular in the estuaries here, but I know exactly those lures that you're talking about. I did definitely use a lot
yeah,
of them back in the day.
yeah. I love them.
Jig head size and weight important. You said
Yeah,
one and a half,
I
two
use
ounce.
depending on the well. If I'm fishing the back of like the surf break and stuff like that, yeah, like the backwash
Yep.
and that, I'll use 1 ounce. If I'm fishing the river mouth, I'll use depending on the current, what time of tide, I'll use a 1 to a 2 ounce. Um, the 2 ounce is mainly if there's a
Yep.
big bar breaking and there's swell coming in, it's sort of just getting swept. So I just want to get it under those waves and make sure I'm fishing in the water column that the fish could potentially be. But
Yep. Now,
I was gonna say,
yep.
like on
Carry on.
headlands and stuff, I just use the 1 to 1.5, depending on how structured the bottom is, and if it's a sandy bottom, I like the 1.5 ounce, so you can sort of cast out past your
Yep.
keyhole and sort of try and line your cast up so you're fishing back past the snag, and that heavier jig head sort of
Yep.
allows you to keep that line that you want to take rather than getting swept
Yep.
out and getting snagged on the spot you want.
Yep. That's good that you mentioned keyholes. I was about to move on to basically areas and locations. Sorry, areas, general areas and structure, that sort of thing. Like, so we're talking headlands, breakwalls, you know,
Yeah.
along the coast. Is there anything that you'd like to add
Yeah.
there?
With the around headlands, there's always little cut-ins and stuff like that, which from a surfing background, I always call it the keyhole. And the waves come
Yep.
in and it sort of hits the rocks, and then a big backwash will run back out. And a lot of the time, I've found a lot of success in these areas where the bait gets caught in it along that backwash and stuff like that. And it almost looks
Yep.
like a washing machine. Obviously, don't fish it if it's
Yep.
wild, because you got to have your weights and you got to be ready for. A lot of the time, these spots can sneak up behind you, so there might be two
Yep.
swells coming in. It gets a bit junky, and it can come in from two directions. The next thing, there's a wave up over behind you, so you sort of got to pick your time. That's
Yep.
why I like the run out tide, because it's only going to get safer, if you will. Like with the tide
Yep.
coming in, it's a bit, you're fishing the unknown because you don't know what the waves are doing with the rising tide in those particular spots. But
Yep.
yeah, where there's like a lot of wash moving in and stuff, and it almost looks like you wouldn't fish it. But they are the first spots that I'm going to put a lure if I'm in there.
So, like, say, I guess you don't want that front edge, and also as it's, as you said, as the current's coming in, you don't. That's not the worst part of the conditions that you're seeing. It could just get dangerous all
Yeah,
of a sudden in
exactly.
the next half hour. And yeah, I think definitely it's worth mentioning that, because I know you've got a story about something going wrong
Yeah, just
on the
get
rocks
caught
at some
out.
stage. I think it was.
Yeah, is that yeah, that was, I was fishing on a local ledge up here, and yeah, just a long period swell. It didn't look like it was. There was water, but it didn't look like it was dangerous. And I was seeing a heap of tuna working out the front, so I'm all excited. Got the big rod
Yep.
out, stick baits and that, and I'm up the end and casting out, and then see these big sets rolling in from out wide, and sort of like, oh, yeah, it's coming. Turn around, and when you're in this position, you can't exactly run away from it. Like when you're there, you're there.
Yep.
But you sort of just do what you can. So the first one came up over the ledge and went just under my waist, maybe a little bit less. And I sort of just leant forward into it and sort of
Yep.
braced. And then the second one came, and I was like, oh, here we go. And then this second one, this thing's
Here we
just
go.
jacked up. And I'm thinking, oh, it's all over.
Yeah.
And just last minute, I've just ducked down, just grabbed onto a rock, anything I could grab. Lucky I had a good grip on it. Yeah, this
Yep.
thing just come over like a rocket, just and I don't know.
And then your life flashes
Yeah,
before
super
your eyes at
spooked.
that moment.
Yeah, I did. I got super spooked and held on. I blew my rod out, and hat's all gone. Just like so wet, just like oh. And like there's a couple of other guys there, and they sort of didn't get hit as bad, but I just sat out for a bit. I just went up and just sort of sat on the rocks and just watched it. It's like it's too much. No tuna's worth fishing this. Like, because once you get spooked, like it's important to
Yep.
get spooked so you know, but you can't concentrate on fishing. Like, it's sort of just you're
Yep.
there because you want to fish, but you're scared. So it's sort of just not fun. Yeah.
I know that feeling. Yes, I've done that off
It's
the
just
rocks before.
takes it away a little bit. But I always wear. I've got
Yeah.
rock boots. I always wear my rock shoes, life jacket. Um, like New South Wales, you have to wear them, excluding break walls and stuff. But I'm just in a habit. Like even the break walls, I always wear a life jacket. Um, just a self-inflatable
Yeah.
one, but just out of habit because you never know. Like even though I've surfed all my life, got the background in the water, like
Yep.
it's just one of those things. It's not if, it's just when.
I think that's a good way to think about it. If you're on the coast, it's going to happen at some stage. You just don't want it to be that last thing
Oh,
you ever see in
absolutely.
your life. Um, so picking
Yeah.
conditions is important. Um, so I want to talk about conditions now, but like two types of conditions. Firstly, what conditions would you avoid, safety wise, and then conditions in terms of fishing conditions that you'd like to
Um,
see.
conditions I'd avoid for headlands
Yep.
is yeah probably
Safety, yeah, safety
the rising
factors.
tide with big swell. Rising tide with big swell. And
What's considered a big swell for those that they haven't done it before?
um, so from a surface point of view, maybe like 2 meters, 2 meters swell. Like that's not really surface
Yep.
point of view, but just like ocean point of view, probably up to the 1.8, 2 meters.
Yep.
1.5 is it's not pushing it, but you just got to be a bit more aware that these bigger sets will come. Like they definitely will come, and you just
Yep.
got to be on your game a bit. Um, but
Yep. And disclaimer before you go on, disclaimer: this is not like some sort of okay, you tick a box here and go ahead and fish. No, this is just
yeah, this is
the
just
general
me personally.
guidelines in case you have absolutely no idea what you're doing and you want to at least have some sort of idea on how to go about chasing
Yeah,
jewfish off the coast on hard bodies and soft
yeah,
plastics in these areas. Yeah, so obviously pay attention to the conditions, do your research. This
yeah,
is just a
exactly.
general
And if
guideline.
if you feel like if you're at a new spot and you're fishing in the afternoon, like I'm a full time chippy, so I go a lot of the time after work.
Yep,
And there's been a few occasions where it's a little bit sketchy and the fish fire up and it's like 7 to 10 fish before dark and you just like got to
yep,
make the call. It's like, oh, it's getting worse. I've got to go. I can't fish here in the dark. And you got to make that decision whether you stay or even scout around, find a safer spot so you can fish all night, or
yep.
be happy with 7 to 10 fish and go home.
Oh, be happy with seven. I'll be happy with half a fish.
Yeah, the headlands are sick. The headlands are sick.
Yeah. Now, what about fishing conditions? As in tides, moon phases, the whole thing.
I like the always like the run out. Always like the run out. I've been getting fish on the high at the moment.
Yep,
Um, but if I see a low tide at lunchtime or something, or like I love fishing during the day, like that's the go. Um, but if I see a
yep,
low tide from say lunchtime to 3, 4 o'clock, um, yeah, I'll probably hit it every day throughout that week and see um, until it starts getting probably low tide at 6 or so. Might fish that one and then probably give it a rest for the rest of the week.
yep,
The swell again, probably that 1.5. Like I don't like I'll do it
yep,
and I know I can handle it, but I just don't like having that fear factor where you've always got to be on your game and watching your back all the
yep.
time. Like the fish produce in these kind of conditions, and like I've seen some footage
Mm-hmm.
of guys in Sydney. I don't know if you've seen, and it is just out of control, absolute out of control. And these blokes are rock fishing. It's like, what are you
Yeah,
chasing? Like, surely there's nothing there. There might be. Like, I've never done it to know, but
yep.
like that would just be like, don't bother.
Yeah, if it looks even a little
Oh
rough,
yeah,
that's
a
me
little
out.
rough. See, a little rough is yeah, fair enough.
I'm inexperienced, so that's like
Yeah,
kind of
it's
like my
important that you know
guideline.
that and you assess what you're comfortable with. And like I've been fishing with some friends, and they weren't even cast out, and it's like, man, this is nothing. Like, this is calm, and they're like, really? It's like, yeah, this is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You got to know. You got to know what you're
What
capable
about wind conditions
of.
and rain?
Yeah. The last weekend we've had wild weather, big southerlies and rain and stuff. I went out on Sunday night. I got 2 fish,
Yeah.
and it was tragic weather, blowing its head off.
Yep.
It was raining. It was cold. Big swell. Again, pick your spot. Like, don't go to where you probably would normally go. You
Yep.
just go somewhere else.
If there's been a lot of rain, for example, and it's been coming out of the rivers,
Not
does
at
that
all.
put you
Nah.
off?
I feel like that pushes the fresh out, and you get a lot of nutrients and fish that will swim out, bait and all that, and sort of. That's why I like the low tides, because it sort of enhances that run out. Where if there is stuff that's working its way out of the river to get into the salt, and then you get that last push of the low tide. In theory, they're waiting.
Any specific like change of tide that you like, as in, say, a 0.4 to a 1.6, or a 0.4 to a 2, or a 2 down to 4?
Yeah,
You said run out, so I should have said it the other way.
No, not really. Not really. There's a couple of older guys that I fish with, and they've got their particular tides, and they're like, get excited for this. Like the big sort of, like the king tide, low tides. That sort of creates like some pretty funky water movement out of the mouths, and that can produce fish really good. But I just go, like I said before, I just fish anything really. Like, I've caught fish in every condition, I think. Like the calmest of calm day, I'm trying to catch something different than a Jew. And then I get smacked at the rocks, and I'm like, yes, this could be it. And it's a Jew, and it's like, oh, like you catch him. It sounds like a little bit arrogant, but it's like you'll catch them whenever. Like if you put that lure in front and they like the way it's presented or the way it's swimming, they'll have a crack.
Now, is this a sort of a seasonal thing, you would say, or you can do this all
I
year
personally
round?
go all year round. I was actually having this conversation the other week with one of the other guys, and he's quite inclined to say that the bigger fish, like your big 20 to 30 kilo fish, they're more seasonal. And then your sort of schoolies, they're sort of your main all year round, which on the light gear, I'm happy to catch schoolies out of headlands and stuff like that all the time. So,
what's the best season for
probably
the big ones?
The run through winter, where you get the mullet run, and all the mullet will run up and spawn and can sort of turn it on. But like I said, we had the floods this year, so it sort of delayed everything, and it's sort of been a bit of a fickle year, bit of a fish kill. And
I think for the last several years, it's been impossible to predict when fish are moving and where they're going.
Like, I think it's and a lot of the times where 2 years ago would be perfect conditions, then you expect to clean up. But this year, it's like they're not there. They're doing the complete opposite of what was absolute prime time last year. And then you go back on the similar condition, and there's nothing. And then you go out there one day just to kill the afternoon, and you have the best session ever. So, definitely hard.
Are you a believer in the moon phase?
Again, I just go. I really like the late moonrise. So you get that afternoon, and then the sun hits the horizon, goes down, and then you probably get an hour of darkness, and then the sun will get, not the sun, the moon will come out up over the ocean and start shedding some light. Which I've had that scenario once before, where the moon came out and it had that epic light across the water. And I put my, I was fishing soft plastics, and I thought, I'll just try the big croaker and throw that out and see if that light makes a difference on it. And second cast, whack, 15 kilo fish, pretty much at my feet, just from that light. Where before that moon came up, nothing was getting hit, and then the moon came up and turned them on.
Now, I forgot to mention, how do we use some of these
Oh
lures?
yeah,
So just real briefly, the croakers
yeah.
and the levies,
The
for
levy
example.
and the croaker, they're just cast out. I like the when the waves are there, you sort of get like a bit of a lull and you just get a big foamy fizz on the water. If you can sort of cast at the back of the last one,
Yep,
and then I'll hit
yep,
the water and I'll do a big sweep to get it down to the depth, and then just a slow line. As long as you can feel that lure working, it's working. Like if it's sort of swimming a bit weird,
yep.
maybe give it another crank with the sweep and try and get it working again. But yeah, just sort of play around with that slow retrieve and the sweep, and like not super fast, just a nice slow retrieve, nice sweep, get the lure working.
Do you have any variations where you throw in a
Yeah,
pause
with
here
the
and there?
sweep, could you sort of sweep it back when you retrieve that slack line when you get your rod back? That's sort of a pause where it might raise up a little bit. And but yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
you can. You could give it a big sweep, let it sit back up for 5 seconds, let it resurface, sweep again. Um, yeah, absolutely. Like there's no limit on how you can fish a lure. Like I had it the other night. I wasn't getting a
yep,
hit, and I was literally doing my rod around in a circle. Like I was just so bored, and I'm just like just sweeping
yeah,
it full circle. Like oh, that might do, but didn't get a hit. But hey, I tried. But no limit in what you can
yeah.
try. Like it's your line.
And basically, these are just about a
Yeah, pretty
meter under
well.
the
Yeah.
surface. What about for
The plastics,
plastics?
the jerk shad. The jerk shad, it can.
Yeah, so the seven
Yeah, that's
inch
right.
gulp
Yeah.
jerk shads.
I just store them in that Gulp Alive tub as well. Like I'll buy the packet, put them in the
Oh yeah,
tub, and they're always send it up. Um, but yeah, that's like a cast out. I like to cast out, wind up really quickly, get the line firm, and then you can either let it sit on the bottom
yep,
and hop it back on the bottom. But what I really like to do is, excuse me, is work different parts of the water column. So my first cast, I might sip it along the bottom, um, and then I'll cast out, wind up really quickly, and then I'll just do light little. I don't know if you how to explain it. Just do like light little jolts, just like with a constant little whine,
yes,
sort of just under the surface, and then
yep,
cast out again. Maybe count to 5 so it doesn't hit the bottom, but then do a little bit more aggressive ones, and then maybe a little bit faster. Um, and then if they don't get hit, then I'll put the paddle tail on and then slow everything down a little bit. And that's more of
yep.
a just raise the rod tip, let it swim back down itself, maybe a twitch, let it swim back down, and then just nice and steady again.
Do you ever pause it on the
Yeah,
bottom? So down here we do pause
yeah,
them quite a bit.
definitely, yeah. So I didn't add that in, but yeah, if I'm sort of getting back to my feet, like getting it close to shore,
Yeah,
I will let it sit on the bottom probably for even 5 seconds, just with like a little jolt, and then the current will sort of keep my line firm in between twitches. Um,
yep.
yeah, so I'll just, and then a lot of the time it gets hit on the bottom as well, right at your feet, where it's just dead bait basically.
Now this is a question that I don't think we answered last time, but like, what type of water should we be looking
Um,
for?
in the keyholes, or basically anywhere, you basically want wash, like you're looking for wash. Like we all love crystal clear
Yep.
glass offs. Like I'm a huge advocate. Yeah, I'm a huge
Holiday
advocate for
water,
that.
like in the
But if that water
postcards.
looks
Yeah.
like sandy and or stirred up with wash there, like behind waves or at the end of a wall or behind the break, fish that like straight away. Like that's if there's no foam, like cast somewhere else because you just want that wash. You want the foam. Um, you just want the stir basically. Like you want fish like bait
Yep.
fish that are in that wash that are unsuspected to be predators there, and like
Yep.
it's when it's super wild, like you might get the whole ocean or the whole river that's just a big foam mess. I personally think that's
Yep.
harder to fish because they could be anywhere. Like everywhere looks good, they could be anywhere. But if you get like the smaller swells, there might be a limited section that holds that nice wash or the foam. Um, and yeah, like
Yep.
aim there straight away. Yeah,
That's a
like
fair
it's
point.
more isolated the spot. Um, and the color of the water, like it might be the color I really like is, you know how you get like those overcasty days and it's like a bluey grey kind of water. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
don't know what it is about that water, but that's the go. Love it.
yeah.
It's sick.
That's interesting. I do have certain colors in certain places that I go to that I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the color. That's perfect. I almost want
Yeah,
to take a picture
absolutely.
of the water. It's like it just
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
real
exactly. It
fishy.
looks fishy. That's what I think I mentioned before. It looks fishy.
Yeah,
And it's like if you think it looks fishy,
yeah.
fish it. Like, yeah, I love that saying.
But you'd have to develop that sense. You see, you've done this for such a long time. You know what color
Yeah,
looks good for that specific area. And I, for the areas that I go to, I know that specific color is. Oh, that's just
yeah,
making me really excited and
yeah,
salivating
exactly.
over that.
So if I can, if someone can go away from this and then go, oh, there's that spot up there. It's always washy, but I've never fished it because I think there's no fish there. Um, Try it. Like chuck a plastic in there and be prepared to lose
Yep,
lures as well. Like there's some spots that look really good, but it's just so rocky and so structured there. Like it's really hard to fish.
yep,
So if you can find like those sort of sandy keyholes where the waves break in there a little bit, which washes out all the sand, you get the backwash. Um, as we spoke about before,
yep,
it might be a matter of fishing all day until you find the time when the fish come, whether it's the run in mid tide or the run out below mid tide or dead low. You'll just see the spot lighten up.
Do you think say depth matters in those areas of
Not at
wash?
all. Not at all.
Because it's a I don't know if it's I wouldn't call it a misconception just yet, but it's a belief in Sydney that you
Yeah.
really need deep water to be chasing jewfish. But this is like different kind of animal. The way you're
Yeah.
chasing them off
Yeah, I
the coast.
definitely. I think in the boat, like we get fixated in that too. It's like, oh, 15 meters, oh, 17 meters, oh, 22 meters, let's go. Yeah, yeah, but
Getting excited
like
now.
I don't really do too much in the river, so I can't really comment on that deep sort of section. But in that
Yeah,
washy stuff and in that surf and all that, definitely, um, like I've caught dew in probably 2 foot of water under whitewash, and it's just like they're there. Like even when I surf, like there's big dew everywhere. Like you don't see them, but they're there.
all right, Josh. So I'm going to move on a little bit with this podcast here. So if you're going to start a session, so this is probably going to help those anglers that just, we've gone through everything. Like literally, I can't think of any detail that I've missed here. I think this has been extremely helpful. But say you're going to chase jewfish, and I'm not going to let you fish your home ground. You're going to just choose somewhere else, anywhere in Australia. The same things, the same principles, all the same lures, all the same gear, just all the same types of terrain. How would you go about it? I want to know the details, how you prepare for the day, starting from the
All
night
right.
before.
I actually love these type of scenarios. I love it. I'll get on Google Maps and I'll suss out. It's like, all right, Missus is away for the weekend. Where am I going? So I'll G up, look on Google Maps, and I'll sort of look at a headland that I could potentially walk. Um, and like I said before, if I got a whole day, I want to try and get the two tides, or at least the most part of two tides, where I can be there and see what that spot, how it behaves, and how it does. Um, if it's, and then I'll just go there and I'll just start throwing plastics around. I'll keep my plastics up quite high if it seems like a rocky sort of ground. And a lot of the time, if you're going to a new spot, you're all excited. You'll put your brand new lures on because you're excited. You're rigged up the night before, and it's yes, let's do it. Um, but I've wised
Yeah,
up because a lot of the time you do that, you'll lose your favorite lure straight away because you don't know the structure, and it's just like nah, see ya. So what I do, I put I'll go from my jig head box and I'll get like an old one, bit rusted hook, and just give it a little sharpen. And I'll start with that and just sort of work out what I'm dealing with. Um, and then just sort of
yep.
keep it up high and then get a little bit more confident and just sort of let it drop a bit longer. And yeah, just sort of work with water column and try and find. Um, and yeah, just spend the day sort of playing around, throw different things, and just enjoy the day. Just enjoy being out there.
Now, I got another question here. It was a question that I thought up of from earlier, and that's you know how you only really get a short bite period when it comes to mulloway. Like you can catch them all throughout the tide, but when you get that hot bite, it's only for that fraction of whatever the water's doing or conditions are. How long do you reckon it is, and do you know? Do you kind of
Oh
get the
yeah,
feeling what I'm talking about
yeah,
when it comes
definitely.
to that bite
And I
period?
think that takes us back to spending that whole day on a new spot, working out what it is. Because there might be no waves in a certain keyhole, and then as the tide's dropping, the waves will start breaking more, which will stir it up a bit. Um, and yeah, and then next thing you get a hit, and then it's like, oh, fish there, and then another two casts, oh, hit again, and then you're like, oh, we're on here, and then you might you might land two, three, you might drop seven, you might miss 20, but you're pretty confident that the fish
Yep.
are in there. And as you say, it doesn't last all day. Like it might shut down after 40 minutes. Sometimes it'll last for hours and it's all day. Like there's been occasions I'll go down there, the worst weather, like howling onshore, just gross. A 2 ounce jig head just to cast into the wind, and first cast fish, and then just all day it's just action, like all day. Like, I'm not talking monster fish, but nice fish from 50 to 90 centimeters, just to keep you busy
Yeah.
all day. Um, but yeah, a lot of that bite time it can be quite fickle. Um, like you'll get like an hour or two, half an hour to 2 hours maybe, and then something might come in and scare them away, or they might just move on to the next spot.
I think like in Sydney, I've noticed bite periods, but they can be really short. They can
Yeah,
be
okay.
about 10 minutes, and you'll get a
Yeah,
hit every cast. Whether you hook up or not,
it's a
you'll
pop
know
bite.
that
Yeah,
that's what you came for, and you've got that big, straight away. You
yeah,
feel that
yeah,
line just super strong tightness. But then it's gone straight away. It's like after about 10,
yeah,
15, 20 minutes, it's dead quiet. The water's all empty all of a sudden. You flick for hours and
yeah,
nothing after that. And that's what like you said, that's why I guess if you fish both
yeah,
tides, you kind of
exactly.
learn that. You can kind of figure out what's the movement
Yeah,
of the fish at that
and then you
particular
can you
spot.
can pick your times you go
And
better as well. Like you might finish work at 3 o'clock, but you know that tide and the way that water's going to react with that tide. It's like, I'll go down for an hour and just see if they're there. Like it's not going to be on every time you
yeah,
go, absolutely not. But um, you might go fishing for an hour or two, catch two fish, and then you're happy. And that's all about learning the spots.
yeah.
And how do you feel about like when you say you'll get a few hits and they do that little run and you pull the hooks? How do you feel about the fish you drop spooking the school?
I believe that it
Yeah, so that
completely
could be
spooks
why
the
the
school.
10-minute hot, and then you might hook one of those scouts and it just goes, nah, danger, move on, and then shuts down.
So my theory, yeah, like you said, I agree with everything you said there. So if I get a hit and I hook up and it shakes it free, I don't think I've
Yeah,
disturbed them enough. But if one
yeah,
fish
yeah,
goes for a run after the hookup and then fights for like
yeah,
2 seconds and I drop it, that's it. That's the school
yeah,
spooked and gone, and that's your chance for the day. That's that one chance you've been working
yeah,
for the Jewfish, and it's over for the day. Like obviously, don't give up. Keep casting,
yeah,
and maybe
totally.
another school come through a minute later or something. Because I mean, I don't think that it's just one school. Sometimes I think it's
Yeah,
many
definitely, I
multiple
agree.
schools, different sizes, and so I'd always keep trying. But I'm pretty sure that if it goes for that pop, oh no, that's it.
Yeah,
That's gone.
I don't know about you, but I
That's
still
it.
get I
Yeah.
still get stoked with that. Like, they're like, "Oh, how'd you go last
Yeah.
time?" It's like, "Yeah, I lost one." Happy, lost one. They're like, "Really?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's good," because it's
That's right. I think getting the hook up and getting the run, that's the best part of catching a
yeah,
jewfish, that first run. If you've I think anyone that's caught any number of mile away knows that that first run, your heart is telling you it's that jewfish.
yeah.
You know it is. That's what you came for, and it just reaffirms all the
Oh,
hours and the time you
absolutely.
spent.
And I think we
leading up
touched
to
on it
that.
before. It's like, especially fishing on the rocks, like if you hook up and your heart's going, everything's excitement. Like you got to just chill out. Like you can't go running around, jumping on rocks trying to get the fish. Like have a bit of a sus. Go all right, get a fish. I can go here. That's not too bad. If I always have like a bit of a look around. If yes, I wear spikes and stuff like that, but if the rocks are wet and it's a sunny day,
Yep.
that spot's being wet, and whether it's an incoming.
And
Yeah,
wet
yeah,
pretty
like it's
recently.
wet. We haven't had rain. It's wet, so just be mindful of that particular spot, um, and
Yep.
just keep your wits. Like you have to keep your wits and just keep it cool. There'll be more. There will be more.
Yeah. All right, last question, Josh. So let's say that the lures aren't working. I mean, we didn't have much time to touch on bait because honestly, this podcast could have gone on for about 5 hours or 10 hours, like literally. So, but I did mention something about bait. Is that what you would use if they weren't touching
Um,
lures? Do you
yeah, I've had
do
a
that
few
anymore?
occasions where I'll be using lures in the afternoon off headlands. And same thing, it'll be a hot bite for 20 minutes, half an hour, and they'll start shutting down. And then just before dark, you might see some bait moving in. So I've always got a bait jig and a small rod handy to just put a bait jig on. And if I've got the big setup, it's like, well, they've gone quiet. I'll try and jig a few yakkers. Probably just get six, maybe 4 or 5 or 6. Get started. It's a bit hard to sort of do both on the rocks because you've always got to hold your rod. Um, so yeah, if it's really quiet, I'll fish that and then I'll stay there at night if it's safe and put on some yakkers because they get smashed too.
All right, Josh. Thank you very
No
much for
worries.
your time. Look, I'm sure a lot of people want to look you up. So where can they
Just on
find you?
Instagram, under Josh Anand. Um, yeah, no, not a big famous fisher or nothing like that. Just your everyday dude that works full time and just charges for fish after work and just enjoys the outdoors of fishing and making the most of what we've got.
Just like the rest of us, Josh. So that's Josh, Josh dot Annand. So that's how you can find him on Instagram. I'm gonna put this up under the description, of course, so you guys can definitely find him wherever you are watching this. If you're hearing this from Spotify, it's gonna be in the description. So make sure you check him out. You've got plenty of big fish photos. It's just nice. It's
Lots
just
of the small ones as well
like I
that keeps
said,
us
we're
happy.
all.
And,
I'm happy with a
oh,
10,
same.
5 centimeter one.
They're so
So on
it's
some
such a nice
days.
fish to look at. They smell a bit, but there's another whole conversation, probably a whole
Oh, they
podcast with
smell
the
good.
smell.
They
But
smell good. There's no fish that smells
yeah,
like him.
it's nice to come home all slimed up.
Do you have anyone you want to shout out, or any of your
There's a couple of old
supporters?
blokes that I won't say their names because that will sort of pinpoint exactly where I am. But there is a couple of old blokes that have sort of mentored me and wouldn't maybe taken me under their wing to sort of teach me the ways and you know just go fishing and we'll have a good laugh and teach you things and get cranky at you if you get too excited and take a photo of your spot and show the world because I caught a big fish. But no, like definitely the guys that I
Yeah,
fish with. There's a couple of guys and there's a bait and tackle shop again. I won't say the name, but they know who they are. Um, but I also
yep,
just put a shout out. I just had one of my close mates lose one of his family members for mental health. So it's if you've
yep.
got mates that want to go fishing or you want to go fishing because you've had a shit day at work, tell your boss I'm going because putting a frame up or whatever it is, it's go for a fish. Like go out, even if you don't catch anything. Look at the sun, look at dolphins. Like just get out and enjoy it. Like I think that's the biggest thing about catching jewfish. Yes, it's a bonus to catch a fish. We don't catch them every time. Um, it's just
Yep.
like I'm happy to be out there all day and just sit in a rock pool for 2 hours if there's no fish and just get burnt to a crisp. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. It's all just I think that's the big one. It's just look out
Awesome,
for each
Josh.
other.
All right, we're gonna we're going to stop
Too
it
easy.
right there.
Thanks
So
for your time, mate.
thanks again,
Appreciate it.
Josh Anand. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And guys, for those of you that are still listening, if you like this and you want to come on, or you know someone that should come on and talk fishing of any sort on the Shroom Light podcast, get them on, send them a message. I want to be doing more of these. So I really had a great time. And if I can get more coming out, more episodes like these, if you guys want to see more of this, let me know. And this is the Shroom signing out.